Twitter is disclosing the details of more than 32,000 accounts it's suspended and removed from its platform after investigations found ties to state-run propaganda and disinformation operations in China, Russia and Turkey. The tech giant has been investigating suspicious users and has made the data available to researchers in the US and Australia. Dr. Jake Wallace from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute has been poring over the data tied to the Chinese Communist Party's campaigns in Hong Kong. He's been speaking with political reporter Matthew Doran.
Dr. Jake Wallace, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Now, this announcement from Twitter today that it's effectively removing more than 30,000 Twitter accounts that have been linked to government propaganda. You've had an opportunity to look over some of these accounts. What is it about them and their behaviour that differentiates them from people with just very strongly held views?
Many of these accounts are low follower accounts that are almost completely new or have been established within the last couple of months. So they behave in ways that just do not look like authentic Twitter users. And much of the content that they're posting just carries the flavour of propaganda. The imagery, the nature of the content, the limited tweet posts content, all of these aspects of the accounts make them look inauthentic. And of course, Twitter themselves in the background will have seen a range of technical signals that allow them to establish that these accounts are inauthentic and coordinated in some way.
So a lot of your analysis has looked particularly at the Hong Kong experience, the users that have been putting information into that market during the protests that we saw ramp up last year. Can you give us a flavour of what sort of information was being put out there by these accounts?
Sure. These accounts have been active for some time. Many of them have persisted posting on Hong Kong, spiking at particular points of intensity in the protests. And in fact, this operation has been on the platform in various forms since April 2017, but predominantly targeting dissidents and critics of the state regime in China. Now, the activity that's focused on the Hong Kong protests is really highlighting suggesting that the protesters themselves are violent. They're placing the emphasis on the cause of the violence as being on the part of the protesters. There's a lot of activity that is designed to support the police in Hong Kong and align our view of the protest as being about supporting law and order in Hong Kong. And there's a great deal of imagery within the data set that is dehumanizing of the protesters themselves. So they're often portrayed or presented as cockroaches. That's quite a significant feature of the imagery. When we looked at the posting patterns of tweets within this data set, they clearly aligned with working hours, Monday to Friday, Beijing time. So clearly from 8 till 5, Monday to Friday, high volume posting that eased off at the weekend. So that's an obvious indication of coordinated, inauthentic behaviour. And the focus aligns clearly with the interests of the People's Republic of China, the party state regime. And what we also noticed was extrapolating from Twitter's data set, we could see that this operation has recently pivoted in an attempt to weaponize US domestic protest and civil unrest in order to create the perception of moral equivalence with the suppression of protests in Hong Kong.
Do you think this is a sort of behaviour from social media platforms that is going to become more and more prevalent in the future, actually going through trying to pick up on how this information is being spread on its own platforms and taking more responsibility for what's being put out there? Because we have heard a lot of criticism levelled at companies such as Twitter, such as Facebook, for not taking responsibility for what's put out there on their platforms.
I think the platforms are in a difficult position. They've found themselves having access to global audiences at scale that are just completely unprecedented. So the challenge of managing who accesses the platform, what kind of content flows across the platform in the scale of billions of users is an incredible challenge. And of course, advances in artificial intelligence and machine learning allow the platforms to try and capture much of this activity before it even hits the intended audiences. But malign actors will play an adversarial cat and mouse game, constantly refining their tactics so that they can exploit the benefits that access to these audiences brings.
Dr. Jake Wallace from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, thank you for your time.
Thank you.